Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
And welcome everyone to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and today I'm going to start off with the NBA. We're going to give you guys a recap of the games from last night that were played throughout the NBA, as well as a preview of the few games that are going to be happening tonight. Then we're going to jump into some NBA news, some news throughout the NBA of some players, some news on the 76ers and what plight has befallen upon them recently, as well as some other NBA news that we need to get into. And then we're going to switch gears, of course, into the NCAA as March is officially here. Last time I was in, it was the day before March, and now we are 2 days into March Madness. So we definitely have to discuss the scores and the scoreboards and all of those things within the NCAA world, as well as some news in regards to college basketball and college basketball players. So there's a lot to jump into. I'm going to, of course, start off with the NBA and a recap, like I said, of games from last night. So the New York Knicks had a satisfying win, against the Orlando Magic last night on the road, 101-90 in that victory for the Knicks. Derrick Rose, he had 19.7 rebounds and 4 assists for his squad last night. So not bad. It is against the Magic, but we'll take that. I'm sure that any win that the Knicks can place on their season, on their charts this year, are very much appreciated for them. Then we had the Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors. The Wizards defeated the Raptors 105-96. A great game over there. I know that the Raptors are looking to make some big moves. They have Serge Ibaka. He was the top performer last night for his squad in that loss. 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 1 steal for him in that game, but it just was not enough to get it done against the Wizards. Again, the Wizards defeated the Raptors 105-96. Then the Dallas Mavericks, they fell by 5 to the Atlanta Hawks, 95-100 in that the scoreboard, for the Atlanta Hawks. Harrison Barnes of the Mavericks, he had 25 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was a top performer for the Mavericks last night, whereas Dwight Howard was the top performer for his Atlanta Hawks. He had 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists. So a nice double-double for the big man inside with the Hawks. Then the 76ers, we have a lot to discuss when it comes to the 76ers. They were just absolutely crushed by the Miami Heat last night, 98-125, an easy win for the Heat last night. TJ McConnell of the 76ers, he had 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. But Hassan Whiteside, he was a top performer for his squad over in Miami. He had 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. Count it for the big man. Denver Nuggets defeated the Milwaukee Bucks last night on the road, 110-98 over in Milwaukee. The Pistons fell to the Pelicans. So the Pelicans finally won. It was 109-86. Anthony Davis, the big guy, the top performer for the Pelicans, of course, no surprise there. 33 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists. And we discussed this win on the sports episode today, the sports podcast earlier today. So if you wanted to listen to mine and Anthony's take on that one's on the sports episode. But, I have to get my little snub in here as I am a Kings fan. This is a first game that the Pelicans have won since acquiring DeMarcus Cousins. And ironically enough, this is the first game that DeMarcus did not play. So no shade, no hate, no nothing. If anything, I'm more upset with, the front office of the Kings. I'm not necessarily upset with DeMarcus, but he was suspended. For those of you who do not know, he did have a technical foul in their last game. And so he was suspended. I believe it was like his 18th tech of the season. So he was suspended one game, this game against the Pistons, where the guys did win. The Pels did win. And, I've said it and I'll say it again. There's a lot that comes with DeMarcus. I've been saying this all season. He's a great, phenomenal player, but sometimes there's a lot that comes with him. And maybe this is what Vlade was talking about. This is a prime example. The Pelicans finally win. DeMarcus doesn't play. I don't know. But then again, the Kings, we'll get into what happened with the Kings last night too later on as we get to it. They were their last game of the night. But anyways, so moving forward, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers falling to the Boston Celtics 99-103. Isaiah Thomas getting the job done. The little guy up top, 31 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists for Isaiah Thomas in that victory over LeBron James. He had a triple-double. 28 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists for the King James. But like I said, it just was not enough to get it done for the Cavaliers last night in Boston. The Pacers lost to the Spurs 99-100. A game winner by Kawhi Leonard. He had 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists. So he was a top performer for the Spurs last night. Miles Turner for the Indiana Pacers, 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist for the center in the middle. Then the Minnesota Timberwolves took on the Utah Jazz. They defeated the Jazz by a lot, excuse me. 107-80. Karl Anthony Towns, big guy in the middle, 21 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists. Definitely carrying the Timberwolves with day in and day out with his performances. Gordon Hayward of the Utah Jazz, he had 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists for his squad. Then moving on to the last 2 games of the night, we had the Rockets defeating the Clippers 122-103. James Harden, 26 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists, so just one shy of a double-double. Chris Paul being the top performer for the Clippers. That's something that we haven't seen quite often just because, due to injuries and things like that. 16 points, 2 rebounds, and 11 assists for the point guard. So, Anthony and I, we were discussing this as well. The Rockets are just throwing up anything. Their kind of mentality right now is let's just shoot. And if we keep shooting, something's bound to fall in. So they definitely are taking that and running with it. Not a problem. They only had 14 points in the fourth quarter, but they had racked up 34, 36, and 38 in the previous 3, giving them that win against the Clippers last night. And then finally, to wrap it up, my Kings at home lost to the Brooklyn Nets 109-100. Brook Lopez of the Nets, he was a top performer, 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 block for the big guy in the middle. Ty Lawson, he was our top performer, 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists. So, if I dish it, I gotta take it. So I did talk some smack about the Pelicans finally winning their first game because DeMarcus was sitting out. Well, we've only won 1 game as well post DeMarcus era, and we just lost to the Brooklyn Nets. So I don't know what to say. So it just, if I'm gonna dish it, I gotta be able to take it, right? So, and my Kings aren't giving me enough leg to stand on and talking all this smack. So anyways, that's going to take us to our first break. And when we come back, we have some news throughout the NBA to discuss, especially with the 76ers and what has just been some sad news for them. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. So I wanted to just give you guys a quick preview of what to look forward to in the NBA tonight. There's just a few games. We have the Warriors without Kevin Durant playing today. They're having Matt Barnes sub in for that at this time. So rotating him in to that open available slot. They're taking on the Chicago Bulls. So the Warriors are going to be in Chicago today playing up against Jimmy Butler and his Bulls. Then we have the Charlotte Hornets playing the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix at the Talking Stick Resort Arena. Kemba Walker versus the Suns. So we'll see how that goes for the Hornets tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then to wrap up the evening, as far as the NBA is concerned, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers. So I just wanted to make sure you guys got that preview before we move on into some other news within the NBA. So first things first was last night in that Detroit Pistons loss to the Pelicans. Andre Drummond was ejected from the game. So if you missed the game, then you missed this ejection. He shoved Tim Frazier in the back of the head after the whistle. Why would you do that? That's what I'm concerned about. So Frazier, he's a 6'1" point guard. He had ripped away a defensive rebound from Drummond beneath the Pelicans basket with 1:23 still left on the clock within the third quarter. Then Drummond then just grabbed Frazier's left arm and tried to wrap him up around the waist, leading to the personal call foul. So, they were kind of fighting for position, whatever, and Frazier tried to break away out of this little hold that he was in, and Drummond felt that the best way to respond was to shove him in the back of the head. So, of course, players from both teams came out and had to separate them and separate Anthony Davis as well, because, you don't really, I don't condone fighting on the court. I am all about playing aggressively and playing strong, and I am all about making, especially when you're on defense, letting the offense know that you're not just going to walk into my key any type of way. I get that. I get playing strong. I get playing aggressive. I get playing with passion. You guys know that I love these players that play hard and play with passion, but I'm not really into the whole shoving thing after the whistle is already called type situation. But then also, I think it's great. Well, I don't want to say great, but I get why other players then run out into the court or try to step in between, because, you're not going to just push my point guard around like that. Anyway, so, he was given a flagrant 2 foul, and which means he was automatically ejected. They did lose the game. And Drummond, he did say last night when asked about that, he said, "We lost the game. One thing led to another. I was in the locker room. they won the game. Simple as that. So he finished the game last night with 13 points and 17 rebounds. So, strong, solid game he was having. And who knows, maybe a little bit more of a contest for the Pistons against the Pelicans if he would have stayed in for the fourth quarter. So definitely something, because then Frazier went on to win his to score his 2 free throws and then scored twice again before the end of the quarter. And that was actually his only points of the game. So, you not only get ejected from the game, but you basically offer up this guy to give him some points, whereas he probably would not have had any points had you not done all of that extra madness. So anyways, moving on to some more exciting news before I drop some sad news for the 76ers on you guys. Anyways, so I don't know if this is necessarily better news, it's funny news, it's news, I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious because, not hilarious in a funny way as in with malicious intent, but just funny as in it happens. So, I've always have said to myself, I hope that one day I have the opportunity to watch a basketball game and to sit kind of like courtside. And, and I have always hoped that when I do get that opportunity to sit courtside, that somebody like the ball, like somebody just throws a crazy pass or somebody swats a shot, like blocks a shot, and then like the ball comes towards me and I get to grab it and I get to like toss it back to like, LeBron James or the ref, even if I get to toss it back to the ref or, toss it back to someone on the court, or if one of the ball players like falls down, like, how there's always that extra play, like when a player on defense is hustling and they run over and I don't know, they just can't stop themselves and then they run into a fan, or somebody blocks one of my players' passes or something, that I'm trying to like save the ball before it goes out of bounds, and then just because I'm running so hard, I fall into the crowd. You know how that happens? Well, I've always hoped that when I'm sitting courtside one day that play will happen and that a player will fall down into me and everybody will be like, well, are you okay? And all of that. And I'll be like, no, it's cool. Like, I just got to hug LeBron. It's not a problem. Anyway, so that is exactly what happened to legendary New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick. So he was sitting courtside in Boston when it was the Boston Celtics in their win over the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. But the funny thing is, LeBron James did stumble into the front row early into the fourth quarter after one of the plays. So he lost his footing going for a putback, whatever, and all that, and plowed into the cameraman. So I think cameramans always get hit. They always get hit and continued to fall and all that due to momentum and things toward Belichick as well. And so that's kind of like, it's funny because and LeBron, he did say after the incident and after the game, he said, I definitely stoved up because I knew it was him. I'm not going to take no legend out. I'm not doing that. I need to keep seeing him win. That's pretty cool for me. So the mutual respect that LeBron had, and sometimes you can't see, if you've ever played sports, sometimes you can't see what's happening out of the court. So he was able to see Belichick before falling into him. So that's definitely funny. LeBron tweeted afterwards, had a great this is actually a typo, but have a great conversation with Coach Belichick after the game. Things like that I'll remember forever. Hashtag GOAT, hashtag mutual respect, hashtag inspiring. So I think that's hilarious to me because here I am saying that I hope some star falls into me because that will be hashtag inspiring and hashtag great for me as well. But it's funny because the roles are reversed. LeBron thought it was awesome that he almost fell into Belichick because he is inspired by that legendary coach. So, the roles were reversed. Here we are thinking that Belichick will be honored to get hit by LeBron, but the roles were actually reversed. So anyway, so that was kind of like a funny little thing that happened last night. And with that, we're going to cut it to our last and final break of the episode. And then when we come back, we have to discuss Joel Embiid and his future with the 76ers, as well as some college basketball. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. And so we're getting ready to wrap up this episode. But first off, I want to wrap up the NBA side of the episode with Joel Embiid of the 76ers. So he is actually going to miss the remainder of the season after his follow-up MRI has revealed that the meniscus tear in his left knee is worse than what they had originally thought. And this was announced by the team just Wednesday, so yesterday. And so he has been out indefinitely to deal with the swelling and soreness that he was experiencing in that left knee, and he hasn't played since January 27th. But this is definitely going to, this is going to basically, they need to figure out when. It's more of a matter of when he's going to have this surgery, not does he need the surgery. I would assume probably as soon as possible to get him back into the recovery mode and getting him nursed back to health. So Joel Embiid, he was the number 3 overall pick back in 2014. And if you guys know anything about his story, he did miss his first 2 seasons because he was recovering from a foot surgery. This, so far this season, he basically has averaged 20 points, 7.8 rebounds a game, and 2.5 blocks per game this season. So I know that a lot of people are starting to discuss whether or not he is still eligible, basically, you could say, to be a contender for Rookie of the Year. He's only played 31 games. They made sure not to play him more than 30 minutes per game to try to be cautious of the fact that, one, his foot and also his knee, especially once his knee was starting to give him some problems. So they're definitely going to have to, really be careful with him, because it says that, reportedly he also admitted that he is experiencing swelling in his knee, just as early as last Thursday when he was participating in full practice last Thursday. So just as early as last week, he was determined to be day to day, but then now that it has been worse, originally he thought, and he even told reporters that he's going to miss at least 2 to 3 weeks. But, it looks like now he is out the rest of the season, in another sad way to go out. I always hate it when you have to go out like that, but luckily he'll be able to get some, of course, top of the line help and get back on that road to recovery. Because as we know, before we weren't sure how good Joel Embiid really was. We didn't know. He never played in the NBA. He was 3rd overall, but we didn't know, and now we know. He's good. He's very valuable to a team, especially like that of a team of the 76ers, who doesn't have really much else going on for them as of right now. He was definitely a beacon of hope for them. So moving on now into the NCAA. So here's a recap of the games from last night. We had number 3, UCLA. They defeated Washington last night at the Pauley Pavilion, 66-98. Lonzo Ball, 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists. So he, of course, was the leading scorer for UCLA last night. Then we had number 8, Louisville. I almost said number 8, Wake Forest. But number 8, Louisville, face off against Wake Forest. Louisville lost to Wake Forest last night, 81-88. John Collins of Wake Forest, he had 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 steal in that great win to upset Louisville. And we're going into championship week, so not a good look for Louisville, who is currently 11-6 in the ACC, whereas Wake Forest is 8-9 in conference play. Arkansas lost to number 12 Florida 65-78. Jalen Barford of Arkansas, he was the top performer for his squad, 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. Whereas Kenyon Berry of Florida, a guard out there in Florida, 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in that win for his squad last night. Then Boston College faced off against number 19 Notre Dame. They lost to them 66-82. Bonzie Colson of Notre Dame, he was the big guy on campus for the squad last night. 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. So that was some of the games last night. Then tonight we have Houston taking on number 18 Cincinnati. Tulsa facing off against number 14 SMU over in Dallas, Texas. And then Iowa is going to show up and try to show out against number 22 Wisconsin. So those are some games to look forward to tonight in the world of college basketball. Ben will be in tomorrow to give you guys kind of an update on what's going on with that. And then in other news in college basketball, the Texas Longhorns has their basketball coach, Coach Smart, says that Tevin Mack, has been released from his scholarship. He was their leading scorer before he was suspended in January for the second time this season. He was benched for their season opener, and they have officially given him his release to transfer. He's a sophomore, averaging 14 points, but he missed the last 13 games. Texas was 10-19 in his sophomore season with the Longhorns, but the program now heads into its first 20-loss season since 1983-84. So that's what their score was with having him, or their record. So they have 2 games left in regular season play. Texas Tech that they just played last night, and then on Saturday they have Baylor. So they are actually last place in the Big 12, but Tevin Mack is released to transfer, so we will give you guys an update on him and where he goes later on. So like I said, college basketball is wrapping up. We are going into now basically the conference tournaments are going to start taking over everything. There's the last few senior nights that we have probably for some places this weekend. I know that my school that I graduated from, UC Irvine, their senior night, I believe, is Saturday. So conference tournaments are getting ready to kick up as regular season comes to a close. We have the ACC is March 7th through the 11th at the Barclays Center. Last year, the champion was North Carolina. Then we have the American Conference, March 9th through the 12th. Last year, that was won by UConn. So, these teams want to win these to help get those bids, right? Big 12 is taking place. Their conference championship tournament is March 8th through the 11th. Last year, it was Kansas who dominated the Big 12. We had the Big East playing games at the Madison Square Garden in New York. Seton Hall was the winner of that tournament last year. We had the Big 10 playing March 8th through the 12th at the Verizon Center in Washington. Michigan State, who I had going all the way last year, was the winner of that one. Then we had the Big West Conference. That's the conference tournament that I'm hoping on going to go watch next week. Is March 9th through the 11th at the Honda Center in Anaheim. I love the Big West Conference tournament. It's a lot of fun. Any of these conference tournaments actually would be a lot of fun to attend, especially, and I've said this before, it's really cool when you get to go to these conference tournaments and see some of these guys play in college, because a lot of these guys are the guys that are going off into the NBA and are going to be some of our greats. Michigan State last year. And very rarely do our favorite players very often, a lot of our favorite players in the NBA, especially rookies and things, are from teams who did very well and won their conference tournament. So it's a lot of fun. It's a fun way that you could bring the family and things like that and go watch these great guys before they're considered greats in the NBA. The Pac-12 is going to be playing at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, March 8th through the 11th. The 2016 champions of that conference last year was Oregon. The SEC is playing in Nashville, Tennessee at the Bridgestone Arena, March 8th through the 12th. Kentucky won it all as far as conference tournament play is concerned last year. And so, let's see, the West Coast Conference, WCC, they're going to be playing in Las Vegas as well, March 3rd through the 4th. So starting tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, the 2016 champions of that conference tournament was Gonzaga last year. I will not be surprised if they repeat again this year. So, like I said, there is a lot happening. This is March Madness. It is beginning. I'm excited for it. I know everyone who is a fan of college basketball is excited for it. If you haven't gotten your tickets for these conference tournaments, for some of these, it might be too late. Truly, honestly, I know these go on sale very early, and a lot of these conferences, they will sell out. Or if you have the plug and you're able to get on a player's guest list, that's probably the only way that you can get a ticket, especially all session tickets. Those are fun. I don't know why people don't understand the fun of an all session, tickets. Some people say, oh, I'm only going to get a ticket to watch my squad play, which I get it. But when you get into that atmosphere, you don't want to leave. It's so much fun, even if your squad loses, depending on how much you have invested into the team. But a lot of times, even when my team does lose, I like to stay and watch other games as well. It's a lot of fun to watch, and even if you get 1 day all session, so you can watch all the games all day long, it's worth it. So anyways, that's gonna do it. That's gonna wrap up our episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and Ben's gonna be in the studio tomorrow. Ben and I both will be back on Monday to give you guys a recap as we lead on into the real championship week, as most of the games are being played next weekend. So anyways, this has been the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.